Mandy thought she was doing the right thing. She was just being neighborly and inviting someone in need to take shelter from the terrible blizzard. But as it turned to night, she heard some questionable noises inside her cabin. She slowly walked out of her room, but what she saw made her wish she had called the police and locked her doors. Mindy Harris Sheeran lived in a small town in Alaska. After graduating as a botanist, she decided to move into a small cabin to further study plants. She wasn't known for being social, but she liked it that way. But Mindy had originally lived in the hot Miami sun in Florida, so she wasn't so used to the cold winters that Alaska had. But one night would prove to her that there were worse things than just the weather. The biggest reason why Mindy moved out to Alaska was to study the native plant life there. She was writing a thesis and needed the necessary research. She knew that the best place to do her research was in the field. After 5 months spent in the cold Alaskan town, the weather was wearing her down. The charm of the weather quickly wore off as she had to endure the cold winter. She missed her family and missed home. Then she met a stranger. Mindy had been drinking hot chocolate and reading a book on her porch when she noticed someone staggering by. It had been snowing a lot, and she felt sorry for the old man. The man struggled in the high snow and seemed to be lost. Mindy knew that a blizzard was going to start soon thanks to her phone's weather app. Suddenly, kindness overwhelmed her. Mindy decided to greet the man warmly. He noticed her and waved back with a smile. She invited him inside her cabin, telling him that he shouldn't be out when a blizzard was about to hit. His name was Klaus, and he didn't know the town very well. He seemed like a friendly man, but what she would learn about his real demeanor later on in the night when it got dark. Mindy was kind enough to let Klaus stay with her in her home during the blizzard, but that's all she intended to do. But the storm was longer than she had anticipated. With it seemingly going through the night, she decided to let him stay on the couch. At least he was good company. She spoke with him for hours after they ate a meal together. Klaus spoke about his years in the army and Mindy spoke about her thesis. Then they both went to bed, but it would only be the beginning. Mindy woke up a few hours later. Something had woken her straight out of sleep. She was confused and had no idea what was going on. Luckily, she did have cameras set up. She just had to check them on her laptop. She was so glad the place came with them installed, but her nerves were close to failing as she checked the cameras. She watched the cameras intently. Then she noticed something moving by the front door. She rewound what she had failed to see and noticed a man hobbling past the porch. Was it Klaus? Mindy had no idea. She felt her heartbeat in her chest, but then she saw something much worse. She grabbed the bat she kept next to her bed. Klaus walked up to the next camera and looked straight at it. It was clear he knew about the cameras, but then she watched as he started sprinting to her room. Mindy couldn't believe what she was watching. Was Klaus actually going to hurt her? She knew she should have called the police, but she was frozen in place. She managed to grab her phone and dial the authorities. She was stuttering and stumbling over her words as she heard Klaus get to the other side of the door. Hearing him scream on the other side of the door was something that would always haunt her. It sounded like he was hurt. She went back to the cameras and saw him stumbling away from something. What was going on? Mindy opened her door against every nerve in her body and sneaked out of her room. She slipped through the darkness of her cabin's corridor, making it to her living room door. But she didn't find Klaus there. Only the front door opened ajar and the rowdy winds blowing into the house. Not knowing what to make of the situation, Mindy gripped her bat tighter. She was about to take another step when she heard it. The growl was deep, reverberating through Mindy's body with a crippling command. She let out a cry as a dark figure came through the open door, snarling louder than the winds outside. Mindy froze in place as she realized what was in her living room. The creature had white fur, massive fangs, and claws as long as the knives in her kitchen. It roared, and she knew she'd never see the light of day again. A polar bear. Cold terror rushed through Mindy's body, flooding her veins before settling in the pits of her stomach. She was about to scream when Klaus charged back into the room, spraying an orange canister into the bear's snout. The beast reeled back, bellowing as it turned tail and stormed out of the cabin. Klaus sprayed after it, banging the door and locking it tight. But the night was far from over. Klaus rushed to the kitchen, spraying the door before locking it. It took Mindy a few minutes to recover before realizing the man had a bleeding gash on his shoulder. She ran for her first aid kit and sat to help him. She'd seen several movies and documentaries about polar bears. She never thought she'd live to be attacked by one. As she dressed Klaus's wound, he explained everything to her. Klaus revealed that he was part of Alaska's wildlife service. He was in town tracking a polar bear that the locals had reported before the blizzard forced him to take a break. What were the chances that the same beast snuck into Mindy's kitchen and woke him up? He'd lured it out of the house before it mauled his shoulder, almost killing him. The police soon came, and although the wildlife service would catch the bear, the incident would be forever etched in Mindy's brain. She didn't know what she'd do if Klaus weren't around.